And as I stood there, staring into the abyss, I had to decide whether to step back into the light or embrace the shadows that had always been a part of me.
Welcome to Afro Narrative. Consider subscribing. I'm your host, Mike Wise-Thalger.
They say life is a canvas painted in shades of gray, where the black and white of morality bleed into each other, creating a spectrum of contradictions. That's how I remember my relationship with Karani, a paradox that has haunted me and elevated me in equal measure. Karani walked into my life when I was at my lowest, a man drowning in a sea of regrets. I had lost my job, my family was falling apart, and I was grasping at straws, trying to find a reason to keep going. He appeared like a beacon of hope, a friend when I had none. He was the kind of man who could light up a room with his laughter, make strangers feel like old friends, and give you the confidence to face your worst fears. But every saint has a shadow, and Karani's shadow was long and dark. At first, I ignored the rumors. People whispered about his dealings, his ruthless climb to success, his trail of broken lives. I saw what I wanted to see, a man who helped me back on my feet, who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. With Karani's help, I rebuilt my life. I got a new job, repaired the fractures in my family, and slowly, I began to feel like myself again. But with my revival came the realization of the price I had paid. Karani's influence was everywhere, and the favors I had accepted from him were not without cost. I was indebted to him, bound by invisible chains forged from his acts of kindness. The day it all fell apart is etched in my memory. Karani had asked me for a favor, something small, he said. Just a business deal that needed a little grace to go through. I knew what he was asking was wrong, that it would hurt people, but the weight of my debt to him was too heavy to refuse. I did what he asked, and in doing so, I crossed a line I never thought I would. The fallout was swift and brutal. The deal went bad, and the people hurt by it were not nameless, faceless strangers. They were my neighbors, my friends. Overnight, I became a pariah, a man shunned by the very community Karani had helped me re-enter. And as for Karani, he vanished, leaving me to face the consequences alone. In the eyes of those who suffered, I was the demon, a man who had betrayed them for his own gain. But in my own story, Karani was the demon, the manipulator who led me down a dark path and then disappeared when the light of truth exposed our deeds. Yet, in another story, I imagine Karani as a saint, a man who lifted someone out of despair, who gave without asking for anything in return. That is the complexity of life, good and evil entwined, creating a narrative where truth is subjective and morality is fluid. As I sit here reflecting on all that has happened, I realize one thing with absolute clarity: I must choose myself, not the version of me shaped by Karani's influence, not the one condemned by those I've wronged, but the true me, forged from the lessons of my journey, the me that acknowledges both the light and the darkness within, embracing the full spectrum of my existence. In the end, I cannot control how others see me, nor can I rewrite their stories, but I can write my own, choosing to live by the lessons I've learned. I choose to be the protagonist of my life, a flawed but self-aware being, navigating the highs and lows until my story reaches its inevitable conclusion. And when that time comes, I will have no regrets, for I choose me. As the days turned into weeks, the weight of my actions settled like a heavy fog over my life. My name became synonymous with betrayal, my presence unwelcome in places I once called home. The isolation was unbearable, but I clung to the idea that choosing myself was the only way forward. I would rebuild again, this time on my terms, no longer under anyone's shadow. But life has a way of twisting even the most resolute decisions. One evening, just as I was beginning to find some semblance of peace, I received an anonymous message. It was short, but it cut through me like a blade. You think you know the whole story, but you only know one side. Meet me at the place where it all began. My heart raced as I read the words over and over. The place where it all began. There was only one place that could be. The old warehouse where Karani and I first sealed our fateful deal. It was the site of my descent into darkness, a place I had hoped to forget. Against my better judgment, I decided to go. The need to understand what had truly happened gnawed at me, and I knew I couldn't move forward without confronting my past one last time. The warehouse was exactly as I remembered, cold, empty, and silent, except for the occasional creak of the building settling in the night. I stepped inside, my breath echoing in the vast, hollow space. The shadows seemed to close in around me, and for a moment, I wondered if this was a trap, but something compelled me to move forward. Then I saw him, Karani, standing in the middle of the room, his back turned to me. The sight of him sent a jolt through my body. He was alive, and not just a ghost from my memories. "You came," he said without turning around. "Why are you here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "You disappeared, left me to clean up the mess you made." Karani slowly turned to face me, and I was struck by how different he looked. The confidence, the charisma, it was all still there, but there was something else now. Something darker, more unhinged. "Did you ever wonder why I helped you?" he asked, his voice calm, almost soothing. "Why I chose you out of all the people I could have helped?" I frowned, confused by his question. "You said you saw potential in me, that you wanted to help me get back on my feet." Karani laughed, a low, unsettling sound. "Yes, that's what I told you, but that was only part of the truth." He took a step closer, and I instinctively took a step back. "The truth is," he continued, "I needed you. You are part of something much bigger, something you could never have imagined." "What are you talking about?" I demanded, my heart pounding. Karani's eyes gleamed with a strange light as he spoke. "The deal we made, it wasn't just a business transaction. It was a test to see how far you would go for your own survival. I needed to know if you were willing to cross that line, to do what was necessary." "For what?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of fear and anger. "For this," he said, spreading his arms wide. "For power, control. You see, I didn't vanish. I simply stepped into the shadows, where the real power lies, and now I want you to join me." I stared at him, turned by the revelation. "Join you? After everything you've done? You ruined my life." "Did I?" Karani asked, tilting his head. "Or did I set you free? Free from the illusions of morality, from the constraints of society. You have the potential to be great, but only if you are willing to embrace the darkness." I shook my head, trying to make sense of his words. "You are insane," I whispered. "Maybe," he said with a smile, "but insanity is just a matter of perspective. You think I am a demon, and perhaps I am, but in another story, I'm the one who sees the world as it truly is, and I am offering you a choice. Stay in the light, where you'll forever be haunted by the shadows, or join me, and we can control the darkness together." The room seemed to close in around me as I grappled with the gravity of his offer. Could I really step back into that world, knowing what it would cost me? Could I trust him, knowing how easily he had manipulated me before? Karani took another step forward, his eyes locked on mine. "This is your moment of truth. Choose wisely." The warehouse was silent as I stood on the precipice of a decision that could change my life forever. I had chosen myself once, but now I realized that that choice wasn't as simple as I had thought. The lines between good and evil, light and darkness, were blurring once again. And as I stood there, staring into the abyss, I had to decide whether to step back into the light or embrace the shadows that had always been a part of me.